Today, we're doing part two of how to deliver successful projects with Antonio Nieto Rodriguez. So this is part two. I would, if you haven't listened to part one, I would really encourage you to do so because Antonio is a world expert. He's the author of many articles and books, but including the one that I'm really digging into in the interview, which is the Harvard Business Review book, the Project Management Handbook, How to Launch, Lead, and Sponsor Successful Projects. And we are focusing this time, this part two, on the what he refers to as Project Canvas, which is the kind of the structure to really, as he said, this is the tool not for the kind of the technical side of the project management, but actually making sure that everybody who needs to be involved and engaged is fully involved and engaged. He refers to as a Project Canvas, which has got three domains: the foundation, the people, and the creation. And he talks a little bit more about that. But we do go into, making sure that you've got the right purpose set out up front, and that you're really keeping that purpose alive. We talk about the people. We talk about the project sponsor. We talk about how you actually make it into a real team, the project team into a real team rather than a group of individuals, and also how to engage the all-important stakeholders and some of the traps that you can fall into if you don't do that correctly. So really encourage you. This is the opportunity to listen to a world-class expert, and that's no understatement whatsoever, a world-class expert on the whole subject of project management. So sit back and listen to the extremely interesting and affable Antonio Nieto Rodriguez. Well, Antonio, welcome back to part two. This is fantastic to get this on how to launch successful projects. And first one was great, and looking forward to digging into this one.
Likewise, John, I truly enjoyed the first one, and I think this one is going to be great too. So let's get going. Yeah,
let's get going on it. So maybe talk about what you referred to as Project Canvas and explain what that is, because I know that it's got three domains: the foundation, the people, and the creation. So maybe just give a bit of background to that, and then we can dig into it.
Sure. I think the background is very important, John, because I'm passionate about management, and I did an MBA, and I like to read. And what I noticed is that most of the more successful management frameworks or tools are super simple. You have the 5 forces of Michael Porter, still valid 40, 50 years ago. You have the 7 Ps from Kotler for marketing. Then you have what else? The business model canvas from Alex Osterwald and Yves Pignon, right? Who has been used by more than 5 million people. And then I was reflecting, what do we have in projects or project management? And there was nothing. It's just all very detailed, all good material, but for the practitioner, for the professionals, you have the PMBOK, you have the different frameworks from Prince, but there was nothing simple. And I think that was one of the reasons why project management has been kind of pushed back and not embraced by senior leaders, by stakeholders, because it's way too complicated. So that was the origin. I had the pleasure to meet Alex Osterwald and Yves Pignon a few times, became good contacts, and we exchanged, and I learned from them. And we did a first sketch on the canvas together. So that was the whole reason. I think there are amazing tools and concepts for project management, for project managers, which is maybe 5% of the people working in projects. I wanted to bring a tool for the 95% of senior leaders, CEOs, and starters to use project management.
Okay. So maybe explain what those 3 domains are.
Yeah, so I broke it down in 3 big domains, and these are domains that if you don't have them, your project will fail 100% for sure. So the first one is the foundation, and it's really, it covers 3, each domain has 3 building blocks. The foundation covers the purpose. I wanted to highlight the purpose of a project. We've always heard about the business case. What I realized, John, is the business case don't get excitement around the organization. Yeah, who gets excited if a project has 10% ROI or 15? Who cares, right? What people want to do are big things. They want to work in projects with impact, sustainability, better organization, more engaged customers and staff. And so I wanted to put on the spotlight the purpose of the projects. Is something that we've not done so far. And the other two elements of the foundation is the investment. So the cost is something that we still need to consider seriously, because we are, by investing, we're saying no to many other things. And the benefits, not the goals, but the benefits. What do we want to get from this project? So these are the three building blocks of the foundation.
Okay. Can I ask you in terms of, because, we talk about purpose and, and we, in a lot of books and leadership books and, business books and that we talk about purpose. And, I mean, we know that it's not just a nice idea. We know that purpose-driven companies, to quote what you were saying, was 2.5 times better at driving innovation, and also generate, 30% more revenue from innovation launched in the last year, which are compelling reasons and logical reasons as to why we should pay a lot of attention to purpose. But if that's true, why do we so often lose sight of purpose?
In a simple way, you look at most of the significant projects, like landing the first human in the moonshot. It was just so simple. Yeah, first human in the moon by the end of the 60s. So I think the most compelling purposes are the ones that are simple, that they stick to your mind, that they have something that you can measure and that you can have a date on that. So I am a big fan of purpose. But like you say, John, there has been a lot around purpose lately. And I think purpose without projects, it is useless. No, you can have a great purpose, but if there's nothing that you can act on them, that doesn't work. And the same for projects without purpose. And what I try to do with my book is find a way to simplify. It's an example I talk about, John, is people today, most of the people working in projects, they will tell you about the tool. For example, you're working on a new HR system, and this is not attractive to anybody, right? What if you dig deeper and you try to find why we work on the new HR system, and then you see that, well, because the new system has new functionality around communities, so that the employees who are currently not very happy will interact and feel more engaged with the company. And then you start to say, well, how can we measure the impact of the new system? Well, by increasing the engagement of our employees in the annual survey, which happens in February. Then you start building a purpose for a project, which was just an HR system. Now we're talking about a project which is going to engage our employees to make them prouder to work with us by 50% in the next survey. So we're not trained. I think that's the problem. And what we need to think about more is how can we build compelling purposes so that people will engage with your projects.
Yeah, and keeping that purpose alive. I mean, because very often you can have that at the beginning of a project or the launch of a project, but then you get involved in the detail and you can lose sight of it. The other thing that you talk about, and I just thought this was such a really, really important point, is that when we look at projects, very often we actually see when it's launched, when we actually have a launch, that's the end of the project. And your argument is that, no, hang on a second, it's only when the benefits are being derived from it. That's when the project. How can we make sure that we just don't see, because I think probably a good example in some ways was the whole, COVID vaccination, right? We thought, well, okay, well, if we produce a vaccine, then that's the solution. But actually producing the vaccine was only one element of it. Getting into people's arms was actually going to be the success of it. How do we make sure that we don't just have that kind of big bang moment and then, we all forget about it and it just is meant to happen after that?
Yeah, great point, John. I think you know a lot about this topic with this type of questions. What I notice is that exactly with the purpose and the benefits is something that you You talk about it at the beginning of the project, and often benefits is something that you define in a small group. Sorry, in a small group with the sponsor, maybe in the finance team to do the financial. But then what I'm proposing in this book is open up the project, open up the benefits, and see who's going to be impacted and what can they expect from you. So engage the stakeholders, not when the project is going, but start from the beginning and say, listen, what are you expecting from this project? Well, we like that it improves our customer service, that we can sell better products, and gather the benefits of your stakeholders, right? This is what should be driving, and put that in a plan and discuss it with them ongoing. Listen, your benefit in 3 months, we're progressing. This is how we're going. So it's kind of putting benefits in the front. Now benefits in all the project management methodologies are an output and nice to have because we focus so much on the project deliverables and so on. I'm saying we need to change that. We need to put benefits up front. The rest is internal kitchen and we'll manage. But people don't care. People care about what they're going to get from the project, and they will support it if they see that things will happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about people, and let's go back to the role of, what makes a great sponsor, because the sponsor is a key person in the process. So what makes a great sponsor, and what are you looking for from the sponsor?
Great. Another one of, so we're moving into the second kind of dimension, which is the people. Projects don't happen without a foundation that we just covered. Projects don't happen without people, right? You cannot automate a project. You need the people side. That's why I say project-based work is the most human-centric. Operations have become just so robotized and automated that we're all shifting to project-based, which is people-centric, and that's good. But the question on the sponsorship is great, and that's one of the biggest reasons for project failure. One of the biggest, if not the biggest, is that the lack of senior sponsorship, the lack of awareness that the role is crucial, the lack of time. If there's one thing I want the sponsor to do, just one thing, if I could choose of the many things, is give me time. Give me time for this project. Dedicate half a day every week. If this project matters for you, give me half a day every week to discuss, to challenge, to provide your input. I don't want sponsors that spend 1 hour per month. This is not sponsor. I'm sorry. This is how we've seen that for the last 40 years. And there's a consistent characteristic on successful projects, high involvement of the sponsor. And just a quick example, recent interview, I was interviewed by HBR, and Alison Beer, the senior editor, told me, same question, what is the key characteristic about the sponsor? And I said, commitment. Commitment, not engagement, the dedication of time. And she said, interesting, a few weeks I was talking to the CEO of Pfizer, and one of the things that he mentioned was that he dedicated 100% of his time to this project, that normally he would never spend time in a project like. And so there are many characteristics that we need from a sponsor, but the most important is commitment of time.
And when you take that, I agree with you. And am I right in saying, and my understanding what you're writing from what you wrote in the book, is that the sponsor should be an individual rather than a committee?
Absolutely, yes. I think you have the committee, the group through the steering committee, which I think is still a very important governance body in projects, especially when you're looking about digital transformation, big company-wide projects. But I think what you want is somebody accountable, and when there are big decisions, that somebody can take decisions taking that accountability. And for me, that's the senior executive to sponsor. It can be in consensus with the team, but sometimes projects, as we're changing things, you will not get all the consensus, and we need to move fast. So yes, definitely one accountable, the sponsor / the project manager. I'm elevating also the accountability of the project manager, but the big decision maker should be just one, and it's the executive.
And in terms of just staying with the project sponsor, but so you've got the project sponsor, you've got the project leader. What is the contracting between the project sponsor and the project leader? Where are the roles? What's the expectation that the leader should have of the sponsor and vice versa?
I think the leader is the one who's dedicated to the project. I recommend 100% if it's a large, and that's the person who will make sure that there's a plan, that there's the team is working, that we have the benefits, all the elements are in place. And the sponsor is the one that will provide the resources, remove organizational blocks, be an ambassador of the project with the organization, help you to take big decisions. So that's, in theory, that's how I see it. Sometimes when the sponsor is not doing the role, why I recommend project leaders take the role of the sponsor. Say, okay, sponsor, I want to pull you into the project. I want to bring you out. One of the things that has been a characteristic in the project management profession for the last 30 years, John, is that we always knew that project sponsors are crucial. We always knew that. But we always hoped that they will go for a training on project sponsorship, that they will learn. We were wishing. We were not touching that space because we knew senior executive, but praying, hoping that they will go, and that will never happen. So what I'm saying now is, you project leader, project manager, go and grab them and say, listen, I need you half of the time. I need you 2 hours per week. I need to be present. I can coach you. So I think I'm kind of expanding the role of the project leader and saying, if your sponsor is not playing a role, it's your responsibility to raise that. Don't wait and hope and pray. That doesn't work. Get them.
That's very powerful. That's a really, really powerful point. Yeah. And I'm not too sure that as you were talking, I was just thinking back on various projects that I've been involved in my own corporate career, and I'm not sure that that's something that was actually done really terribly well. And I think that if you had, it would have been. And as you know, Antonio, I do a lot of work. I mean, I do a lot of my work is with teams. And one of the things that I'm very passionate about, I refer to it in my own work as the 7 R's, which were, do the right people in the right roles, doing the right work in the right way with the right resources, delivering the right resources. So that's for me. And you talk about having the right people, but how do you determine who are the right people to be in the project, to be part of the project team? Because typically in my experience is, okay, well, we've got to have somebody from IT, we've got to have somebody from finance, we've got to have somebody from marketing, we've got to have somebody from distribution, et cetera, et cetera. Is that the right way of going about it? Or is that necessarily the way you're going to get the right people in the team?
I think it's an important thing to know what type of skills you need for the project. I think there's very little reflection actually on the team setup. It's often seen, okay, for that project, the expert is that person. We'll call them, we'll just have them on board, and for other pieces of the project, we see who's available. And we don't think enough about the composition of the projects. It's like sports teams, you think about what you have already, a strong player here, so we need to compensate with that. That doesn't happen in projects. That's why I wanted to put resources as a key point, is the discussion. And then one thing that is crucial in resources and getting the right team is, at least at the beginning, is asking people to volunteer. John, this is something that I don't understand. It's known that the most engaged people in a project are volunteers, because they see something for them. They see that they can contribute. They want to work with somebody that they appreciate. They like the purpose of the project. It's aligned. But I don't understand why companies don't ask for volunteers. I always say, a bit sarcastic, but if you have a project and you ask for volunteers and nobody volunteers, that project is crap, right? You should never start. You don't need 3 weeks to analyze the project and business case. You do it in 5 minutes. Nobody volunteers, project, don't start it. Yeah. And then the other big thing on resources, John, which is, it's just frustrating when you see that companies with 10,000 people, they're not able to extract and dedicate to their future, which are their projects, at least to the 100% dedication of resources of their top talent. Why not? Why do people have to work 10% of their time, 2 hours per week? I think I always say radically, if you are not half of your time dedicated to this project, you're going to be a constraint. I don't want you in this project. It's just going to be more difficult. So why leaders cannot take 50 people in a company of 10,000, say, okay, for the next months, you work 100% on this project, digital. Why do we always need to call a team of consultants? And the consultants, somehow they don't bring you just 50, they bring you 100, right? The day after, to train them as well. So I think this is one of the biggest changes that I'm asking senior, dedicate the best people to the best projects, 100%, at least 50.
Yeah, and that plays back to what I thought when we were doing in the part one of the interview where you talked, and I just thought it was so powerful, and I have quoted you since that interview on that, is about, this organizational ambidexterity, that we've got to both run the business and change the business simultaneously, and that's the job of leaders now. And and I think heretofore sometimes projects were seen as, well, it's something I'll do when I get a bit of spare time from the day job. And which is always the kiss of death for that. Can I ask you, just staying with the team piece just for a moment? And it really was kind of a question in my own mind as I was reading through it, because as I said, Antonio, I do a lot of work with teams, and I always kind of say people, okay, are you a group or are you a team, or are you a high performing team, right? And there's a difference between all of them. Is the project team really a team, or is it a group of people, of individuals?
I think most of the cases is a group of individuals, because project leaders have not put enough emphasis on the team, or what you're saying, John, they're creating a high-performing team. And I think that's one of the things I think makes a big difference, where people feel they're in this amazing project where it's challenging, but they're going to get something big and in return for the organization. So I think one of the biggest steps for project leaders is creating a high-performing team. That's, for me, what you need to do, and it doesn't happen just by like that. You know that, John. You need to follow some principles. You need to establish some rules. There's a lot of good material on high-performing team. John, you're an expert, so involved in at least for the top 5 projects. We need people like you, John, come in and say, help us to make a high-performing team, including with senior leaders. And then the benefits are huge, right? We all love, I always say, when you retire in your career, you will remember only, on most of the cases, those projects where you're part of these high-performing teams. They either they work or didn't work. That doesn't matter, but that's what sticks to your mind. These are the experiences that we love to tell. And I've been in great projects. We were successful, and terrible projects, but we had that high-performing team mindset.
Yeah, I know. I just think it's so important. Can I ask you to explain, because I just thought this was a really interesting matrix, your dedication commitment matrix, and the use of that. Can you maybe just talk a little bit about that? Because I just thought that was really powerful.
Yeah, in my kind of intent to simplify most of these points, John, I created this small 2-dimensional matrix saying, the one thing is that you believe in your project. We know Albert Bandura and all these psychologists research where believing drives your behavior and your thinking and body language. And so I think that's one of the elements. If you are honest, don't try to pretend. Just tell me honestly, do you think we're going to make this project big digital, or are we going to go to the moon, or and honestly, 100%, we're going to make it. But then the dedication, if you're not putting any time, then I don't care that you believe, because we need time too. So for me, the two aspects is believing in the project, but then committing 50% of your time at least to that big idea. And if you don't have them, one or the other or both, then that project almost guaranteed, John, is going to be a failure.
Yeah. No, I just thought that was very powerful. I thought that was it was a really good tool that you could use with the team to actually say, let's have a conversation around this. Let's actually plot where we are and to understand. And I just thought it was strong. The last thing I just want to talk about is the whole, and you did dedicate quite a bit of time talking about it, is about stakeholder management and the stakeholder identification and stakeholder management, and the importance of doing that and how it needs to be integrated into the entire project rather than just, oh, it's something I'll do when I've got a bit of time.
Yeah, no, that's another. If you look at reasons for project failure, is that stakeholders don't buy it, the stakeholders block it, and I wanted to put the big focus that stakeholders are something that you can identify that you should be managing. I do a lot of training to senior leaders and kind of broad management, and I'm surprised how little they know about stakeholder management and just the simple matrix of power and impact on the project is so visually so easy to understand and take action to try to solve that. Stakeholders in the past, John, when you were learning project management, you would be asked to develop a communication plan. That was the whole change strategy, right? With a communication plan, stakeholders will be happy to embrace your project. This was maybe 40 years ago, but I think what we need to go deeper, and that's why I always mention that project management, at least the way I see it, is a conversion of project and change management and product development and agile methods and understanding change and embracing that stakeholders, they all have different needs, and understand them from the beginning and try to address them by asking them for the benefits like we were talking. That helps a lot. I think it's a big focus area, much more important than some of the things that we dedicate a lot of time today.
Because there's no doubt, I mean, the stakeholders, if assuming you've identified the appropriate stakeholders, the stakeholders can be, you know, they can smooth out the bumpy, you know, things that come along on the road that will inevitably come, or they can smooth out the challenging issues, and whether it's, you know, making sure that you've got the right resource available or whatever it might be. But I just think it's a hugely important. Antonio, this has been fantastic. Again, you've delivered huge content to us, and I just want to say thank you for doing that. Again, I want to make sure that everyone, I really would strongly advise anybody listening in to go and get your book, because I just think it's just a fantastic, it's a great read, but it's also a great book to have by your side as you're kind of going into your next project and making sure that you give it the best chance of success. So Antonio, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. It's been great. It's been informative, and I know it'll be of huge value to everybody. We'll have your details, which you gave us the last one, where they can get in touch with you.
Yeah.
And but thank you. I really appreciate you giving us the time.
Thanks to you, John, for all what you're doing to better the leadership around the world. Thank you. A pleasure.
Thank you.